I thought betrayal always came with warning signs. Strange text. Late night. A woman's perfume on a collar. But mine came wrapped in something beautiful. It came on the night Marcus, my beautiful boy, came home with a school award. He was 14 years old, holding that certificate like it was made of gold. His smile stretched across his entire face as he handed it to me. "Mom, look what I did," he said, wrapping his arms around me so tight I could barely breathe. That's when I heard it. Later that night, after Marcus had gone to bed, I was in the hallway looking for a pen when I froze. My husband's voice came through our bedroom door. He was on the phone, whispering so quietly I almost missed it. "She must never find out the boy isn't hers." My heart stopped. The world tilted sideways. I stood there in that dark hallway for what felt like hours, my hand pressed against the wall. Isn't hers. What did that mean? I had carried that boy for 9 months. I had given birth to him. I had nursed him through colic and fever and every childhood sickness. I had watched him take his first steps, heard his first word, felt his first hug. But as I stood there in the darkness, a horrible truth began to creep in. A truth I had pushed away for years because something inside me had always felt different. If he wasn't mine, then whose child had I spent 22 years raising? Sleep didn't come that night. I lay beside my husband, Owen, and watched him sleep like he hadn't just destroyed my entire world. My mind kept replaying everything. The strange visits to the hospital right after Marcus was born. Owen's sister being there more than me in those first weeks. The times Owen would hold the baby and study his face like he was solving a puzzle. The way he'd sometimes pull away when I talked about Marcus looking exactly like me. All the small moments that never quite made sense suddenly crystallized into a horrible picture. I thought about the sleepless nights, endless nights when I'd sat up with him while he cried, my nipples cracked and bleeding, my body exhausted beyond anything I'd ever felt. I thought about the hospital corridors I'd run through when he had asthma attacks at age 5. The school fees I'd paid alone while Owen said money was tight. The time I'd donated bone marrow when he needed testing. The way I'd given everything to this boy without hesitation. Every sacrifice replayed itself in my head like a cruel, mocking movie. All those moments I thought proved our bond. All those moments I thought cemented my role as his mother. What if none of it mattered? What if I was just the woman who happened to be there? The next morning I made breakfast like always. Pancakes, Marcus's favorite. My hands shook as I flipped them. Owen came into the kitchen, kissed my shoulder, asked about my day. Oh casual. Oh normal. Like he hadn't whispered the words that had shattered my reality into pieces. I watched Marcus eat, really watched him. For the first time in years, I looked for something of myself in his face. His dark eyes. His square jaw. His strong hands. And I saw nothing. I saw Owen everywhere. That's when I decided I couldn't wait anymore. I had to know the truth. I confronted him that afternoon. I didn't have a plan or even the right words. I just grabbed his arm in the garage and asked him straight, "Is Marcus my son?" Owen's face went white, then gray. Then he just collapsed into a lawn chair and confessed everything like he'd been waiting years to say it. His mother, her name was Victoria, she had him. Owen started, his voice hollow. She got pregnant before we met. After he was born, she just couldn't handle it. She disappeared 2 weeks after his birth. Just left him with her mother. I sank down on a cardboard box, not trusting my legs. "When I met you, I was desperate," he continued. "I loved that baby. But I couldn't raise him alone." The hospital paperwork was already confused because Victoria was unreliable about everything. When you came along and wanted to be his mother so badly, I let you. You let me. I heard my voice, small, broken, nothing like myself. "You were already a good wife," he said quietly. "You became a good mother. He's happy. Or happy. What would it change to tell you? What would it change? Everything. Nothing." I felt like I was splitting into 2 people, the woman I thought I was and the woman I actually was. "Does he know?" I asked. Owen shook his head. No one knows. Except her. Those words hung in the air between us like poison. She's back, Owen whispered almost to himself. Victoria. Just hearing her name made something twist inside my chest. She wasn't dead in some tragic accident. She wasn't struggling with mental illness somewhere. She wasn't the victim of circumstance. She was alive. She was somewhere in the world. And she had abandoned her baby like he was garbage. Owen didn't have many details. They'd met at college. She was beautiful, he said. The way men say it when they're talking about something that burned them. She got pregnant and instead of dealing with it, she just evaporated. Left the baby with her own mother. Called Owen one day and said she couldn't be a mother. Where is she now? I demanded. I don't know, Owen said. We lost touch years ago. But I didn't believe him. Not anymore. I'd learned that my husband was a liar, and I was still learning just how good he was at it. I walked away from that conversation without another word. I went to my car. I drove to my sister's house and told her everything while she held my shaking hands. What are you going to do? She asked. Had no idea. Days passed. I moved through them like a ghost. I cooked, cleaned. I went to work at the accounting firm. I pretended everything was fine while my marriage crumbled invisibly around me. Then, 3 weeks later, Owen sat down at the dinner table and said the words I'd been dreading. She called me today, he said quietly. Victoria. She wants to meet Marcus. My fork fell onto my plate with a sharp clang. She's back in town, Owen continued. She says she's different now. She says she made a mistake. I stared at my husband like he was a stranger. In many ways he was. No, I said. She's his mother. I'm his mother. I cut him off, my voice cold as ice. You need to let him choose, Owen said. He deserves to know the truth. But it wasn't about what Marcus deserved. Not really. It was about Owen finally getting to be honest after living a lie. And I was supposed to pay the price. She didn't call. She didn't ask to meet me first. She sent a letter directly to Marcus. A letter that arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I saw it in the mail and my stomach dropped. The envelope had his name written in unfamiliar handwriting. No return address. Just Marcus, written in blue ink. I sat at the kitchen table holding that envelope like it was alive and dangerous. Every instinct told me to burn it. To pretend it never arrived. To protect my boy from the truth that would fracture his world the same way it had fractured mine. But I didn't. When Marcus came home from school, I put the envelope on his bed. Then I couldn't watch. I stood in the kitchen and waited, my entire body tense, listening. After 10 minutes, I heard his door open. His footsteps came down the hallway. They were slower than usual. Heavier somehow. Mom! His voice was different. Confused. Scared. I turned around and saw him holding the letter. His face was pale. Can we talk? He asked quietly. So I told him. I sat on the couch next to my son and I told him the truth. I watched his eyes go wide, then wet, then cold. I watched the boy I'd raised for 22 years slowly disconnect from me like someone pulling out a plug. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice small. I wanted to say, because your father is a coward. Because I was trying to protect you. Because I was protecting me. But I just said, I'm sorry. After that day, everything changed. It was subtle at first. When I called him for dinner, he came, but his eyes looked through me. When I asked about his day, he answered in short sentences. The ease between us, the easy love that had always felt automatic, suddenly required effort. He still called me Mom, but the word had changed. Came out careful now, like he was testing to see if it still fit. I tried to act like nothing had shifted, but we both knew I was lying. He spent hours in his room. When I'd knock, he'd say he was fine, just studying. But I could hear him on video calls with Owen, asking questions, making plans to meet Victoria. The woman who'd abandoned him wasn't a criminal. She wasn't diseased or dangerous. She was just absent. And somehow that made it worse. I'd see him sitting at the breakfast table, staring at nothing, and I'd catch him looking at his own reflection like he was searching for someone else. "You okay?" I'd ask, already knowing the answer. He'd nod and not quite meet my eyes. 2 weeks later, he asked me to sit down. He had that careful expression on his face again. "I need to talk to you about something," he said, and the way he said it, so formal, so distant, broke my heart all over again. "What is it, honey?" I asked gently, already bracing for impact. He took a breath and asked me the question I wasn't ready for. "Why didn't you ever question things? Why did you just accept it?" I'd had 2 weeks to prepare for this question, and I still had no good answer. "Because I loved you," I said, which was true but not complete. "Because I wanted to be your mother." "But you knew something was wrong," Marcus said, his voice rising. "You had to have known. Didn't you ever wonder why your medical records didn't match mine? Didn't you ever?" He stopped himself, but I could see what he was thinking. He was realizing that I'd been complicit in the lie too. "I pushed away the questions," I admitted quietly. "When something felt off, I made myself not think about it. I was so desperate to be your mother that I let myself be blind." "So this is my fault now?" he demanded, standing up. "You're blaming me." "No," I said quickly. "No, sweetheart, I'm not." But he was already walking out. That night he packed a bag. I found him shoving clothes into a duffel. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Owen said I could stay with him for a while. I need space." That's what he called it. What I called it was the beginning of the end. I didn't try to stop him. What right did I have? I watched him leave from the front porch. He threw his bag in the truck, got in, and drove away without looking back. He didn't hug me goodbye. He didn't say, "I love you." He just left. I stood there in the darkness and felt something inside me shatter beyond repair. She showed up at my house on a Saturday morning like she owned it. I was watering the front garden when a car pulled into the driveway. A woman stepped out, thin, blonde, wearing designer sunglasses. She was beautiful in a cold, calculated way. "You must be the one who raised my son," she said, walking toward me like we were old friends about to reconnect. "Victoria." I set down my watering can slowly. "He's not your son." She smiled like I'd said something amusing. "He is actually. Biologically, legally, and soon custody-wise." My hands clenched. "You abandoned him." "I was young and made a mistake," she said, completely calm. "I've grown, changed, and now I'm here to build a relationship with my son and get him what he deserves." What he deserves. Like she had any idea what he deserved. "He's an adult," I said. "He'll make his own choices." "Yes, he will," Victoria agreed. "And they're already choosing to spend time with me. I have a lawyer, by the way. Just so you know what's coming." "Lawyer? For what?" Marcus was 22. She had no legal ground to stand on. But I was wrong. She walked into my life like a storm. Sudden, violent, and impossible to stop. She took Marcus to expensive dinners. She bought him gifts. She told him stories about his real family, and made it sound like I'd stolen something that was hers. And Owen welcomed her back into our lives like an old friend returning from a vacation. I realized, watching my husband and the woman he'd lied to me about, that my marriage had been built on nothing. Every moment I thought I knew him, I'd been wrong. "I need to know her," Marcus said when I finally got him alone. "She's my biological mother. Don't I deserve that?" Deserve. Everyone kept using that word and it meant nothing. "You have a mother," I said quietly. "I have someone who raised me," he said, and the distinction felt like a knife. "But I want to know where I come from." Understood. I did. But understanding didn't make it hurt less. He started spending weekends with Victoria. Then weekdays. Then he stopped coming home at all. I'd see him in family pictures she posted on social media. My son, smiling at someone else, playing the role I'd written for him over 22 years, but with a stranger wearing my life. What I heard in his silence was what he wasn't saying. I don't need you anymore. I'd wake up in the middle of the night reaching for my phone, wanting to text him. Then I'd remember that I was the one person he needed distance from. Owen kept insisting everything would work out, that Marcus just needed time. But I knew something he didn't. Time doesn't heal wounds when one person keeps reopening them. 3 months after meeting Victoria, Marcus told Owen he was moving into an apartment near her. A place she'd helped him find. A place she was probably helping him pay for. He froze me out completely. He didn't respond to my texts. He didn't take my calls. When I tried to visit, he wasn't there. When I showed up at his work, he asked security to remove me. I'd lost him. And everyone acted like it was inevitable. Owen's betrayal was quieter than Marcus's, but somehow more painful. "You're being emotional," he told me when I confronted him about spending time with Victoria. "This is what's best for Marcus." "What's best for Marcus is his mother," I snapped. "He has a biological mother now," Owen said calmly. "You need to accept that." Like I was the unreasonable one. Like I was the one who'd blown up our family. "She abandoned him," I said, voice shaking. "How are you okay with that?" "People make mistakes," Owen said. "She's trying to correct hers. By taking my son." "He's not your possession," Owen said. And that's when I realized he'd never actually thought of me as Marcus's real mother. I was just the woman who'd been convenient to raise him. I moved out of our bedroom. Then I moved into the guest room. Then I consulted a divorce lawyer. I was sitting in her office when my lawyer asked me to bring evidence, financial records, documentation of my relationship with Marcus, any proof of the emotional bond. That's when I discovered what Owen had really been doing all these years. The documents were hidden in a filing cabinet in Owen's office. Payments going back years. Regular transfers to an account with Victoria's name on it. While I was raising Marcus, working extra hours to pay for his education, skipping my own medical appointments because money was tight, Owen was funding Victoria's silence. He was paying her to stay away. Then when she came back, he stopped. The last payment was dated 3 months before her letter arrived. 3 months before her sudden desire to build a relationship with her son. This wasn't redemption. This was extraction. I called my lawyer back and told her everything. I showed her the bank statements, the checks, the evidence of a man paying off a woman to disappear, and then that same woman reappearing the moment he stopped paying. My lawyer smiled. "You have leverage," she said. "Leverage? But what good was leverage if it meant destroying my son even more?" I thought about Marcus, thinking Victoria had suddenly remembered him out of the goodness of her heart. I thought about him believing she was doing this out of love, when really she'd been paid to leave and was now coming back for money, status, or whatever it was women like her wanted. I could expose all of it. I could destroy her carefully crafted image. I could save my son from being used. Or I could let him learn the hard way. My lawyer was thorough. She built a case that showed abandonment, financial manipulation, and fraud. She documented every moment I'd been Marcus's parent. Every doctor's appointment, every school event, every time I'd chosen him over myself. "Biologically, she's his mother," my lawyer explained. "But legally and emotionally, you have grounds to fight this. If she's trying to gain custody or financial control over a 22-year-old adult, there are implications for fraud and exploitation. Can we prove she's trying to manipulate him?" "Yes. We're working on it," my lawyer said. "But you need to prepare yourself for something. Even if we win this case, Marcus might not forgive you for fighting her." She was right. The truth was both a weapon and a poison. I scheduled a meeting with Owen and Victoria, with my lawyer present. The moment Victoria saw her, her confident smile faltered. "What is this?" Owen asked. "This," my lawyer said, "is where I inform you that your financial arrangement with my client's former partner constitutes fraud, and that any attempt to manipulate her adult child for financial or custody gain will result in legal action." Victoria's face went cold and hard. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. But she did. We all did. The meeting ended in silence. Victoria left without another word. Owen looked at me like I'd committed a terrible betrayal. You should have just let him go, he said quietly. Maybe he was right. Maybe I should have. But I hadn't let him go, and now Marcus hated me for it. He came to the house one evening, his face twisted with anger. I'd never seen him look at me that way before. How could you, he demanded. How could you threaten her with lawyers? I wasn't threatening her, I tried to explain. Marcus, she was using you. She's my mother, he shouted. And you're trying to turn me against her just like you've tried to control everything in my life. That's not fair. Fair. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You raised me as a lie. You let me believe you were my biological mother. You got credit for something you stole. And now you want credit for ruining the one chance I have to know where I come from. Oh. He said it like I'd taken him from someone. I protected you, I said. You manipulated me, he shot back. Everything you did was selfish. Even now, you're being selfish. I felt something break inside me at those words. The worst part was that under the anger, I could see him wondering if maybe he was right. I'm your mother, I said quietly. Real mother or not. And I have never been anything but honest about loving you. You lied my entire life, he said. And now you're still lying. You act like you're the victim, but you're not. Victoria's not the villain. You are. He said I was never his real mother. He said it with such certainty, such pain, that I almost believed him. He left, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I stood alone in my house, in the wreckage of my life, and finally let myself fall apart. I didn't cry that night. I did something worse. I packed his childhood into boxes. I took his baby photos, the ones I'd looked at thousands of times, and I put them in a cardboard box. I put his first shoes in there, his hospital bracelet, his kindergarten pictures, the drawing he'd made for me in second grade that said, "I love you, Mom," in uneven letters. Every memory felt like a crime scene. Every moment I'd treasured felt contaminated. I sat in his empty room surrounded by boxes of a life that apparently never mattered, and I cried alone for the first time since this all started. Not angry tears. Not frustrated tears. Just grief. Grief for the son I'd lost. Grief for the marriage that was a lie. Grief for the woman I'd thought I was. A mother, a wife, someone with a purpose. Around 2 a.m. I stopped crying. Something inside me shifted. Some desperate, clawing part of me that had been trying to save things just let go. I realized I couldn't fix this. I couldn't make Marcus love me. I couldn't make Owen honest. I couldn't go back. All I could do was move forward. I stopped calling Marcus. I stopped sending him texts he wouldn't read. I stopped trying to explain myself to a person who'd already made up his mind. I stopped shrinking and apologizing and trying to prove something to people who'd already decided what I was. Instead, I hired a therapist, filed for divorce. I accepted a promotion at work that required me to travel. I changed my phone number. I blocked Owen from my social media. I started living for myself. And that scared them. Owen called repeatedly. We should talk about the house. We should work things out. You're being unreasonable. Victoria reached out through a mutual acquaintance, asking if I'd reconsider my legal position. Marcus stopped by my apartment one day and found me not home. He left no message. They'd expected me to wait, to keep being the one who held on, the one who needed them. I didn't. I made friends who had nothing to do with my past. I took dance classes. I traveled to places I'd never been. I learned who I was outside of being someone's wife or someone's mother. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. 3 months into my new life, my lawyer called. Victoria approached Marcus, she said, asking him to sign over the deed to his house. She's claiming she wants to help him invest in something bigger. I felt cold anger rise in me, different from before. Not desperate anger. Protective anger. He's signing it. Yes. Not yet. He has questions. But Victoria had underestimated something crucial. Marcus might be angry with me, but he wasn't stupid. And he wasn't broken enough that he'd hand over his entire future to a stranger. I told my lawyer to send documentation of every payment Owen had made to Victoria. Every contract. Every agreement. I told her to be clear. This woman had a history of taking money and disappearing. I didn't do it to destroy Victoria. I did it to protect Marcus, even if he hated me for it. Victoria began controlling Marcus the way she'd never actually raised him. She was constantly critical. She demanded access to his bank accounts. She wanted him to change jobs to something more respectable. She judged his friends, his apartment, his life. She was becoming what she'd never been, a parent. And Marcus was finally seeing it. He came to my apartment on a Saturday afternoon, standing at my door like someone from a past life. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, tired, lost. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside without a word. He sat on my couch, and for the first time in months, he actually looked at me like I was a real person. "I think I made a mistake," he said finally. I wanted to say, "I told you so." I wanted to say I'd known all along. I wanted to prove I was right. Instead, I just listened. Marcus told me about Victoria's expectations. How she'd started treating him like he owed her for being born. How she'd suggested he should focus on making money to pay her back for the years she'd supposedly suffered. "She said I was ungrateful," he said, his voice breaking. "She said I didn't appreciate what she was doing for me." He asked me one question that made everything else fall away. "Why did you stay?" His voice was shaking. "After you found out. After I left. Why didn't you just let me go?" I took a breath and told him the truth, without bitterness, without anger, without expecting anything in return. "Because you're my son," I said simply. "Not because of biology. Not because I gave birth to you. Because I chose to be your mother every single day for 22 years. And that choice didn't stop just because you were angry with me." He cried then. We both did. I showed him something I'd never told anyone about. I had written letters to Victoria. Dozens of them. Starting when Marcus was 3 years old. Letters asking her to please come back. Letters telling her about the son she'd abandoned. Letters asking her to reconsider, to be part of his life, to let him know his biological mother. I never sent them because I didn't have an address. But I'd written every single one. Marcus read them, his face a mask of shock. "You wanted her in my life," he asked. "I wanted you to have everything I thought would make you happy," I said. "Even if it meant sharing you." He left with copies of the letters. The next day, I heard he'd confronted Victoria. Victoria denied everything. She called Marcus ungrateful. She demanded loyalty she'd never earned. She threatened to tell people he was an unfilial son. When he pushed back, she did what she did best. She disappeared. Not physically, she was still in town. But she stopped returning his calls. She unfollowed him on social media. She blocked his number. She abandoned him again. And this time Marcus walked away on his own. He came to my apartment and asked if I would let him come home. Owen tried to shift blame one final time. He came to my apartment claiming he'd never wanted any of this. That it wasn't his fault. That I was the one who'd created all the drama by being difficult. "If you had just accepted Victoria into Marcus's life without the lawyers." "Get out," I said quietly. "You destroyed our family. You destroyed our family," I said, my voice steady and cold. "The day you asked me to raise a child that wasn't mine and let me believe he was. Everything else followed from that lie." Owen left. He didn't try to contact me again. The court date for the divorce was set for the following month. Everything came out in court. The affair that had produced Marcus. The payments to Victoria. The abandonment. The manipulation. Owen's dishonesty. Victoria's sudden reappearance and financial demands. All of it laid bare in a public record. The judge listened to everything with a quiet expression. When it came time for her ruling, she looked at me and then at Owen. "This court recognizes that marriage was founded on fraud and deception," she said. And that a woman who had no legal or moral standing in this situation attempted to manipulate an adult for financial gain. She granted my divorce. She ordered Owen to pay me alimony. She documented everything about Victoria's abandonment and financial arrangement. Then the judge turned to the bench where Marcus was sitting, watching everything. Blood stood on one side. Sacrifice stood on the other. Marcus stood up. He walked toward me through the crowded courtroom and he didn't stop. He called me Mom. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Without fear. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it with everything he was. "I'm sorry it took me this long to understand what you did for me. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry too," I said. "For not protecting you better. For letting someone else's lies become your confusion. You did protect me," he said. "You always did." We stood there in that courtroom, surrounded by lawyers and judges and strangers, and we held each other like we'd found our way home. But healing isn't instant. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. Love doesn't go back to the way it was just because we both wanted it to. We had to start over. We had to build something new. I didn't win because of biology. I didn't win because the law was on my side, though it was. I won because love stayed when everyone else left. I won because I chose to love a child I didn't give birth to, and I kept choosing it even when it cost me everything. I won because I finally chose myself too. Marcus comes to my apartment every Sunday now. We cook together. Talk. We're learning how to be in each other's lives without the weight of secrets and lies. Owen is remarried. Victoria disappeared again, this time from Marcus's life. And me. I'm learning that motherhood isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about choosing someone over and over again even when they hurt you. I'm learning that some bonds are chosen, others are tested, and some, if you're willing to fight for them, are finally understood. That's the story I want to leave you with, not because I won, but because I learned what it meant to love like that. And maybe in the end that's all any mother can do. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you have a story to tell, you're not alone here.